Hello friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name is Amy. I am an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the NIV. We are in 1 Samuel chapter 17. And then it's a long chapter, but we're doing the whole chapter. So, David and Goliath. Now, the Philistines gathered their forces for war and assembled at Soko in Judah. They pitched camp at Ephes, E-P-H-E-S, Damim, D-A-M-M-I-M, between Soko and Azekah, E-Z-E-K-A-H. Saul and the Israelites assembled and camped in the valley of Elah, E-L-A-H, and drew up their battle plan to meet the Philistines. The Philistines occupied one hill and the Israelites another, with the valley in between them. So that would be their battlegrounds. They're jockeying for high ground, wanting to see what's going on. You know, war tactics are war tactics. It doesn't really matter where you are in history, geography. Always plays a role. A champion named Goliath, who was from Gath, came out of the Philistine camp. He was over 9 feet tall. Now, Hebrew, about 6 cubits and a span, or about 3 meters, about 9 feet tall. And I need you to also understand, so even to people today, a 9-foot tall person is going to be like, wow, you're a really tall person. Oh my gosh, because we don't normally see people that tall, even today. But even back then, okay, and it's interesting, because I was just thinking about this earlier today. Even back then, a full-grown, like, Israeli man during these time frames was about my size, and I am a towering like 5'4.5". Okay, so it's not. I am a wee little thing, so it must have been even more so, like, overwhelming, because it's not even like we're talking about 6 foot tall. I mean, when they say Saul stood over everybody else, it's like, yeah, so he was like 5'9". Because if you had an entire country of people at 5'4" or 5'5", and you have somebody who's at 5'9", they look like they're a giant. To me, 5'9" is the tall person's. And when I can't get things off of the shelf, and I'm asking for a tall person's to help me, I'm talking about anybody 5'9" or taller to get things off the top shelf for me. So, must have been very intimidating. He had a bronze helmet on his head and wore a coat of scale armor of bronze, weighing 5,000 shekels. That is about 125 pounds. Wow. Or about 57 kilograms. So his armor weighed roughly the amount that I do. So that's kind of crazy. I mean, I'm a little bit more than that, but roughly the weight of me. It's okay. He's a very big, strong person. On his legs, he wore bronze greaves, and a bronze javelin was slung to on his back. His spear shaft was like a weaver's rod, and its iron point weighed 600 shekels. See, that is about 15 pounds. Okay. His shield bearer went ahead of him. Okay, all right. 15 pounds or 7 kilograms, depending upon where you're following around in the world, where you're tuning in from. Goliath stood and shouted to the ranks of Israel, "Why do you come out and line up for battle? Am I not a Philistine? Are you not servants of Saul? Choose a man and have him come down to me. If he is able to fight and kill me, we will become your subjects. But if I overcome him and kill him, you will become our subject and serve us." Then the Philistine says, "This day I defy the ranks of Israel. Give me a man and let us fight each other." On hearing the Philistines' words, Saul and the Israelites were dismayed and terrified. I can imagine so. Yes, that's also part of warfare. to make the other side feel, like they can't win. Is part of the tactics. Now, David was the son of an Ephraite named Jesse, who was from Bethlehem in Judah. Jesse had 8 sons, and in Saul's time, he was old and well advanced in his years. Jesse's 3 oldest sons had followed Saul to war. The firstborn, Eliab, the second, Abinadab, and the third, Shammah. David was the youngest. The 3 oldest followed Saul, but David went back and forth from Saul to tending to his father's sheep in Bethlehem, because they were close enough that he could do that. For 40 days, the Philistines came forward every morning and evening and took his stand. Now Jesse said to his son David, take this ephah, and it's got a footnote here of D, and that is probably about 3/5 of a bushel, or about 22 liters, of roasted grain, and these 10 loaves of bread for your brothers, and hurry to their camp. Take along these 10 cheeses to the commanders of their unit. So Hebrew, 1,000 to their 1,000. Okay, so their unit. That's how they're broken down into different units. So see how your brothers are, and bring back some assurance. Like a good dad, he wants to know his sons are okay. So he's sending them a care package. That's nice. We do that. Or some token, or some pledge of spoils, for some assurance from them. Have them tell us what they're going to bring back, kind of thing. They are with Saul and all the men of Israel in the valley of Elah, fighting against the Philistines. Early in the morning, David left the flock with the shepherd, loaded up, and set out, as Jesse had directed. He reached the camp as the army was going out into its battle positions, shouting the war cry. Israel and Philistines were drawing up their lines facing each other. David left things with the keeper of supplies, ran to the battle lines, and greeted his brothers. As he was talking with them, Goliath, the Philistine champion from Gath, stepped out from his lines and shouted his usual defiance, and David heard it. When the Israelites saw the man, they all ran from in great fear. Now the Israelites had been saying, "Do you see how this man keeps coming out? He comes out to defy Israel. The king will give great wealth to the man who kills him. He will also give his daughter in marriage, and will exempt his father's family from taxes to Israel." It's a pretty choice view right there. David asked the men standing near him, "What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and removes this disgrace from Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?" So David had a lot of sort of attitude to him, like, "Who is this? No, we kill him," which is, he's got a lot of pent up anger from, being left out there in the shepherding fields, by himself, having to defend himself against wild animals. So, young and rash, essentially. They repeated to him what they had been saying and told him, "This is what will be done for the man who kills him." When Eliab, David's older brother, heard him speaking with these men, he burned with anger at him and asked, "Why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the desert? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down here only to watch battle. Watch the battle." Ooh, that's a lot of aggression towards your little brother. Huh? "Now what have I done?" said David. "Can't I even speak?" He turned away to someone else and brought up the same matter, and the man answered him as before. What David said was overheard and reported to Saul, and so Saul sent for him. David said to Saul, "Let no one lose heart on the account of this Philistine. Your servant will go and fight him." Saul replied, "You are not able to go out against this Philistine and fight him. You are only a boy, and he has been a fighting man from his youth. But David said to Saul, "Your servant has been keeping his father's sheep. When a lion or a bear came and carried off a sheep from the flock, I went after it, struck it, and rescued the sheep from its mouth. When it turned on me, I seized it by the hair, struck it, and killed it. Your servant has killed both lion and bear. This uncircumcised Philistine will be like one of them, because he likes to defy the armies of the living God. The Lord who delivered me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear will deliver me from the hand of the Philistines." So Saul said to David, "Go, and the Lord be with you." He's going, "All right, foolish boy." Then Saul dressed David in his own tunic. He put a coat of armor on him and a bronze helmet on his head. David fastened the sword over the tunic and tried walking around because he was not used to them. "I cannot go in these," he said to Saul, "because I am not used to them." So he took them off. Then he took his staff in his hand, chose 5 smooth stones from the stream, put them in the pouch of his shepherd's bag, and with a sling in his hand, approached the Philistine. So he's max my size. This guy's wearing armor that weighs as much as my whole, basically my whole body weight. 9 foot tall. And he's got 5 stones and a sling. Now, this is not a slingshot. People like to think of it like that, where it's a slingshot. No, that's a slingshot. Now, it's a similar thing where it's got the piece on the end, but it's actually more like he uses it like a whip, because and the sling, like a throwing sling, not a slingshot. So it's still skill and accuracy, but to me, that it's a sling and not a slingshot makes it even harder, because you got to be calculating the trajectory, the curve, all kinds of stuff. Be good at it like you would with a bow and arrow kind of deal. Meanwhile, the Philistine, with his shield bearer in front of him, kept coming closer to David. He looked David over and saw he was only a boy, ruddy and handsome, and he despised him. He said to David, "Am I a dog that you come at me with sticks?" And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. "Come here," he said. "I will give your flesh to the birds of the air and the beasts of the field." David said to the Philistine, "You come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. Today I will give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and the beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. All those gathered here will know that it is not by sword or by spear that the Lord saves, for the battle is the Lord's, and he will give all of you into our hands." As the Philistine moved closer to attack him, David ran quickly towards the battle line to meet him. Reaching into his bag and taking out a stone, he slung it and struck the Philistine on the forehead. The stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell face down into the ground. So the force of the stone hit it just the right kind of trajectory that hit him, like basically right between the eyes, and just the right angle and force that, it caved part of his head. So it's like, wow. So David triumphed over the Philistine with a sling and a stone. Without a sword in his hand, he struck down the Philistine and killed him. David ran and stood over him. He took hold of the Philistine's sword, drew it from the scabbard. After he killed him, he cut off his head with the sword. When the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they turned and ran. They shouted, and the men of Israel, they turned and ran. The men of Israel and Judah surged forward with a shout and pursued the Philistines to the entrance of Gath. Some Septuagint manuscripts, or in Hebrew, it's a valley, so the valley of Gath. And to the gates of Ekron. Their dead were strewn along the Sha'arim, Shaaraim, road to Gath and Ekron. When the Israelites returned from chasing the Philistines, they plundered their camp. David took the Philistines' head and brought it to Jerusalem, and he put the Philistines' weapons in his own tent. As Saul watched David going out to meet the Philistine, he said to Abner, commander of the army, "Abner, whose son is that young man?" Abner replied, "Surely as you live, O king, I don't know." The king said, "Find out whose son this young man is." As soon as David returned from killing the Philistine, Abner took him and brought him before Saul, with David still holding the Philistine's head. "Whose son are you, young man?" Saul asked him. David said, "I am the son of your servant Jesse of Bethlehem." So, that is the story of David and Goliath, which you can watch in a live action way on the House of David. Accuracy of storyline, I don't know, because I haven't really deep dived into that, other than to find out about that interesting tidbit about David and the questionable parentage going on there. But that is just like the Almighty. He takes the small and unassuming and he rises them to greatness. Until the next video, friends. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name's Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the Niv. We are in the book of 1 Samuel, and we are in chapter 18. We are starting off here because David has just killed Goliath. We had the massive battle. Saul's jealousy of David. So here's the next thing. Because remember, Saul has been being tormented. And David has been the person, the shepherd boy, playing the music for him. Because it makes the demons go away. After David had finished talking with Saul, Jonathan became one in spirit with David, and he loved him as himself. So his best friend. Okay. From that day, Saul kept David with him and did not let him return to his father's house. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Jonathan took off the robe he was wearing and gave it to David, along with his tunic and even his sword, his bow, and his belt. So I guess he did not have a lot of clothes on then. It sounds like he's naked at that point. So hopefully, he had other clothes he could put on. Whatever Saul sent him to do, David did it so successfully, wisely, that Saul gave him a high rank in the army. This pleased all the people and Saul's officers as well. So David's becoming quite popular. When the men were returning home after David had killed the Philistine, the women came out from all the towns of Israel to meet King Saul with singing and dancing, and with joyful songs and with tambourines and lutes. As they danced, they sang, "Saul has slain his thousands, and David his tens of thousands." Uh-oh. They just made David more of a warrior than the king. That never bodes well for anybody, right? Saul was very angry. Yeah. This refrain galled him. They have credited David with tens of thousands, he thought, but me with only thousands. What more can he get but the kingdom? And from that time on, Saul kept a jealous eye on David, who's actually already been anointed for the kingdom. So he's not wrong. He's not wrong, but one, he was warned, and two, it's not going to seem like that to people around him. It's the way it works. The next day, an evil see evil or injurious spirit from God came forcibly upon Saul. He was prophesying in his house while David was playing the harp, as he usually did. Saul had a spear in his hand, and he hurled it, saying to himself, "I'll pin David to the wall." But David eluded him twice. Saul was afraid of David because the Lord was with David, but had left Saul. So he sent David away from him and gave him a command over 1,000 men. And David led the troops into their campaigns. And everything he did with great success. Well, he was anointed by the Lord, so of course he did. For he was very wise. So his great success was because he was very wise. Because the Lord was with him. When Saul saw how successful he was, or wise, he was afraid of him. But all Israel and Judah loved David because he led them in their campaigns. Saul said to David, "Here is my older daughter Merab. I will give her to you in marriage. Only serve me bravely and fight the battles of the Lord." For Saul said to himself, I will not raise a hand against him. Let the Philistines do that. But David said to Saul, "Who am I? And what is my family or my father's clan in Israel, that I should become the king's son-in-law?" So, however, when the time came for Merab, Saul's daughter, to be given to David, she was given in marriage to Adriel of Meholah, Meholah. Adriel, Adriel. So now Saul's daughter, Michal, was in love with David. So thank goodness that her older sister did not marry him, because that would have been very tragic for her, right? And when they told Saul about it, he was pleased. "I will give her to him," he thought. So that, sorry about that. All right, so he was quite pleased. And why not? Because, he wants to marry this guy to, someone in his family, and here's a daughter that's even in love with him. What could go wrong? "I will give her to him," he thought, "so that she may be a snare to him, and so that the hand of the Philistines may be against him." A snare for him. Okay. So the Philistines would be against him. All right, well, so he wants them on his side. So Saul said to David, "Now you will have a second opportunity to become my son-in-law." Then Saul ordered his attendants, "Speak to David privately and say, 'Look, the king is pleased with you, and his attendants all like you. Now become his son-in-law.'" They repeated these words to David, but David said, "Do you think it is a small matter to become the king's son-in-law? I am only a poor man and little known." When Saul's servants told him what David said, Saul replied, say to David, "The king wants no price for the bride than 100 Philistine foreskins to take revenge on his enemies." Okay, so one there is indicating that there is a bride price that is an expected thing that is happening. So that's interesting. Other cultures at this time also have a similar situation. It's just, Saul's plan was to have David fall by the hands of the Philistines. So he's got a wicked under thing there. And if not, hey, then he gets 100 Philistines killed. When the attendants told David these things, he was pleased to become the king's son-in-law. So before the allotted time elapsed, David and his armies went out and killed 200 Philistines. He brought their foreskins and presented the full number to the king so that he might become the king's son-in-law. Then Saul gave him his daughter Michal, Michal, no E in there, like the masculine, in marriage. When Saul realized the Lord was with David and that his daughter, Michal, loved David, Saul became still more afraid of him and remained his enemy the rest of his days. The Philistines' commanders continued to go out to battle, and as often as they did, David met them with more success, or acted more wisely than the rest of Saul's officers, and his name became well known. He's also now the son-in-law of the king. So, of course, that doesn't remember, because Saul appears being bothered by demons, so he is absolutely not seeing things clearly. So, and that will continue into the next chapter, friends. Hello, friends. So, Bible study, the Niv, John, chapter 8, verses 1 through 20 today. But Jesus went to the Mount of Olives. At dawn, he appeared again in the temple courts, where all the people gathered around him, and he sat down to teach them. The teachers of the law and the Pharisees brought in a woman caught in adultery. They made her stand before the group and said to Jesus, "Teacher, this woman was caught in the act of adultery. And the law of Moses commanded us to stone such women. Now what do you say?" They were using this question as a trap in order to have a basis for accusing him. But Jesus bent down and starting to write on the ground in his finger, which is interesting. I'd like to know what he was writing. What was it in Hebrew? It probably was in Hebrew. When they kept on questioning him, he straightened up and said to them, "If any one of you is without sin, let him be the first to throw the stone at her." Again, he stooped down and wrote on the ground. At this, those who heard began to go away one at a time, the older ones first, until only Jesus was left, with the woman still standing there. Jesus straightened up and asked her, "Woman, where are they? Has no one condemned you?" "No one, sir," she said. Neither do I condemn you," Jesus declared. "Now go now and leave your life of sin. Go now and leave your life of sin." That's Mary Magdalene. The book of John doesn't identify who the person is, but in other versions, like other Gospels, I don't mean by that particularly clear, not other versions of the Bible that I am aware of, but in previous testimonies, Matthew and Mark, this is identified as Mary Magdalene. And I guess there weren't real intent, were they? She had to die because all of them decided suddenly she didn't have to die once the spectacle of, let's see if we can force him to kill this person with us so that we can show the people what kind of person he is. He wasn't willing to engage in the spectacle, so they went away. Also, that I find that very telling, that none of them felt like they didn't have any sin, so they couldn't judge. All right, the validity, the next section here starts at 12, is the validity of Jesus' testimony. When Jesus spoke again to the people, he said, "I am the light of the world. Whoever follows me will never walk in darkness, but will have the light of life." The Pharisees challenged him. "Here you are, appearing as your own witness. Your testimony is not valid." Because in their culture, you need 2 witnesses to testify. Jesus answered, "Even if I testify on my own behalf, my testimony is valid. For I know where I came from and where I'm going. But you have no idea where I come from or where I am going. You judge by human standards. I pass judgment on no one. But if I do judge, my decisions are right, because I am not alone. I stand with the Father who sent me. In your own law it is written that the testimony of two men is valid. I am one who testifies for myself. My other witness is my Father who sent me." Then they asked him, "Where is your Father?" "You do not know me or my Father," Jesus replied. "If you knew me, you would know my Father also." He spoke those words while teaching in the temple area near the place where the offerings were put. Yet no one seized him because his time had not yet come. So here he is, again, speaking openly, publicly about who he is, and yet he's not being arrested, which is, again, is something that's noted by the people that he's teaching around him. Because he's careful enough with his words that they're not able to come and seize him for anything. And yeah, their culture requires two witnesses. And he's not directly saying he's the Messiah in any of this language. He's using language that implies, but doesn't directly say, because it is not yet his time. This is also a good reminder of "judge not, lest ye be judged." So here's the thing, because we very much so face this in today's society, where society feels like they have the right to define other people for themselves. Like they have somebody else. You have to get enough people to see your version of you enough for the world to accept that you are who you say you are. And in reality, that's some low energy of vibration, narcissistic nonsense. The only person who defines you is you, and you define you by the actions you take and the way you treat other people and how you show people what's in your heart. So let's all start from a heart-centered place today, because that's what he really wants from us in the first place. He wants us to be the best version of us that we can be, and to treat everybody around us with a little bit of dignity, grace, and respect. So let's see if we can go about the world today moving in grace, making our life one big moving prayer. Because honestly, putting our head down and doing the work is the best way to make everybody who thinks that we can't do what we say we can do to shut their mouth, because we're proving them wrong without even acknowledging their existence, which I have to tell you feels fantastically delicious. Hello, friends, and welcome to Adventures in Pixieland. My name is Amy. I'm an ordained minister, and we are in Bible study. We are in the Niv, and we are in Psalms Book 5, and we're doing Psalm 107, which is a very long psalm, but we are actually going to do it all the way through in one psalm. It's basically as long as one of the long chapters in any other book of the Bible. Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good. His love endures forever. Let the redeemed of the Lord say this, those he redeemed from the land of the foe, those he gathered from the lands, from the east and the west, from the north and the south. Some wandered in desert wastelands, finding no way to a city where they could settle. They were hungry and thirsty, and their lives ebbed away. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he delivered them in their distress. He led them by a straight way to a city where they could settle. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for men. For he satisfies the thirst and fills the hungry with good things. Some sat in darkness and the deepest gloom, prisoners suffering in iron chains. For they had rebelled against the words of God and despised the counsel of the Most High. So he subjected them to bitter labor. They stumbled, and there was no one to help. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. He brought them out of darkness and the deepest gloom, and he broke away their chains. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for men. For he breaks down the gates of bronze and cuts through the bars of iron. Some become fools through their rebellious ways and suffered affliction because of their iniquities. They loathed all food and drew near the gates of death. They cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he saved them from their distress. He sent forth his word and healed them. He rescued them from the grave. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for men. Let them sacrifice thank offerings and tell of his works with songs of joy. Others went out on the sea in ships. They were merchants on the mighty waters. They saw the works of the Lord, his wonderful deeds in the deep. For he spoke and stirred up a tempest that lifted high the waves. They mount up to the heavens and went down to the depths. In their peril, their courage melted away. They reeled and staggered like drunken men. Then they were at their wits' end. Then they cried out to the Lord in their trouble, and he brought them out of their distress. He stilled the storm to a whisper, and the waves of the sea were hushed. They were glad when it grew calm, and he guided them to their desired haven. Let them give thanks to the Lord for his unfailing love and his wonderful deeds for men. Let them exalt him in the assembly of the people and praise him in the council of the elders. He turned rivers into a desert, flowing springs into thirsty ground, and fruitful land into a salt waste because of the wickedness of those who lived there. He turned the desert into pools of water and the parched ground into flowing springs. There he brought the hungry to live, and they found a city where they could settle. They sowed fields and planted vineyards, and they yielded a fruitful harvest. He blessed them, and their numbers greatly increased, and he did not let their herds diminish. So he blessed them in every way they understood prosperity. Then their numbers decreased, and they were humbled by oppression, calamity, and sorrow. He who pours contempt on nobles made them wander in a trackless waste. but he lifted the needy out of their affliction and increased their families like flock. The upright see and rejoice, but all the wicked shut their mouths. Whoever is wise, let him heed these things and consider the great love of the Lord. Amen to that. Until the next video, friends.